In the annals of history, few names evoke the power and terror that Attila the Hun does. Known as the Scourge of God, Attila was the formidable head of the Huns, an unstoppable force of horse-riding archers that originated from Central Asia. They swept across the Eurasian plains, their onslaught causing tremors in the very heart of the Roman Empire. The relationship between Attila and the Roman Empire was complex and fraught with tension. The Huns were initially allied with the Romans, their combined forces pushing back the Germanic tribes threatening the empire's borders. However, as Attila's power grew, he began to see the Roman Empire not as an ally, but as a rich prize ripe for the taking. This led to an era of mutual distrust and a series of brutal wars, with the Huns laying waste to cities and capturing vast territories. Enter Priscus, a 5th century Eastern Roman diplomat and Greek historian whose work is regarded as a reliable contemporary account of Attila the Hun and his court. In the summer of 449 CE, Priscus was asked by Maximin, a friend and diplomat, to accompany him on an envoy to the court of Attila. Here is his first-hand account of his visit to Attila's court. When the hour arrived, we went to the palace, along with the embassy from the Western Romans, and stood on the threshold of the hall in the presence of Attila. The cupbearers gave us a cup according to the national custom, that we might pray before we sat down. Having tasted the cup, we proceeded to take our seats. All the chairs were ranged along the walls of the room on either side. Attila sat in the middle on a couch. A second couch was set behind him, and from it steps led up to his bed, which was covered with linen sheets and wrought coverlets for ornament, such as Greeks and Romans used to deck bridal beds. The places on the right of Attila were held chief in honor, those on the left, where we sat, were only second. Priscus, a noble among the Scythians, sat on our side, but had the precedence of us. Onegesius sat on a chair on the right of Attila's couch, and over against Onegesius on a chair sat 2 of Attila's sons. His eldest son sat on his couch, not near him but at the extreme end, with his eyes fixed on the ground, in shy respect for his father. When all were arranged, a cupbearer came and handed Attila a wooden cup of wine. He took it and saluted the first in precedence, who, honored by the salutation, stood up and might not sit down until the king, having tasted or drained the wine, returned the cup to the attendant. All the guests then honored Attila in the same way, saluting him and then tasting the cups, but he did not stand up. Each of us had a special cupbearer who would come forward in order to present the wine, when the cupbearer of Attila retired. When the second in precedence and those next to him had been honored in like manner, Attila toasted us in the same way according to the order of the seats. When this ceremony was over, the cupbearers retired, and tables large enough for 3 or 4 or even more to sit at were placed next the table of Attila, so that each could take of the food on the dishes without leaving his seat. The attendant of Attila first entered with a dish full of meat, and behind him came the other attendants with bread and viands, which they laid on the tables. A luxurious meal, served on silver plate, had been made ready for us and the barbarian guests, but Attila ate nothing but meat on a wooden trencher. In everything else, too, he showed himself temperate. His cup was of wood, while to the guests were given goblets of gold and silver. His dress, too, was quite simple, affecting only to be clean. The sword he carried at his side, the latchets of his Scythian shoes, the bridle of his horse were not adorned like those of the other Scythians, with gold or gems or anything costly. When the viands of the first course had been consumed, we all stood up and did not resume our seats until each one, in the order before observed, drank to the health of Attila in the goblet of wine presented to him. We then sat down, and a second dish was placed on each table with eatables of another kind. After this course, the same ceremony was observed as after the first. When evening fell, torches were lit, and 2 barbarians coming forward in front of Attila sang songs they had composed, celebrating his victories and deeds of valor in war. And of the guests, as they looked at the singers, some were pleased with the verses, others reminded of wars were excited in their souls, while yet others, whose bodies were feeble with age and their spirits compelled to rest, shed tears. After the songs, a Scythian whose mind was deranged appeared, and by uttering outlandish and senseless words forced the company to laugh. After him, Zircon, the Moorish dwarf, entered. He had been sent by Attila as a gift to Aetius, and Edecon had persuaded him to come to Attila in order to recover his wife, whom he had left behind him in Scythia. The lady was a Scythian whom he had obtained in marriage through the influence of his patron Bleda. He did not succeed in recovering her, for Attila was angry with him for returning. On the occasion of the banquet he made his appearance, and threw all except Attila into fits of unquenchable laughter by his appearance, his dress, his voice, and his words, which were a confused jumble of Latin, Hunnic, and Gothic. Attila, however, remained immovable and of unchanging countenance, nor by word or act did he betray anything approaching to a smile of merriment, except at the entry of Ernas, his youngest son, whom he pulled by the cheek and gazed on with a calm look of satisfaction. I was surprised that he made so much of this son and neglected his other children, but a barbarian who sat beside me and knew Latin, bidding me not reveal what he told, gave me to understand that prophets had forewarned Attila that his race would fall but would be restored by this boy. When the night had advanced, we retired from the banquet, not wishing to assist further at the potations.